I wanted to know how you and Erica keep a God-centered marriage and a healthy marriage.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, by the way, if you want to get married as your top priority, then the chances are you will. What you make your top priority in life, you likely hit. You think about it, for a lot of young people, their top priority is just to feel good. They make it happen. It's amazing. We are creatures designed by God to have to aim at something, to have a destination, to have purpose. For us, so I'm actually writing a book about this. I'm a big believer in it. I think that everyone here should do this, which is I honor the Sabbath every week. And I encourage everyone to do this. Turn off your phone for 1 day a week. The world will keep on turning and you will be happier. What that has meant for our marriage, by honoring the Sabbath, it makes it easier to spend time with the kids, to go to church, to be with one another, and to kind of have a holy covering around that. And so I encourage all of you guys, you are not so important where you have to have your phone on every single day. Pick 1 day a week. For us, it's Friday night to Sunday morning. I turn my phone off completely. I'm unreachable by the outside world. My mind gets clarified. My body feels better. I'm not going down checking for notifications all the time. And so that's one of the ways we do it. And secondly, it's through spiritual disciplines. My wife and I pray together. We fast together. We go to church together. And men, let me tell you something that you will never forget. When you get married, it is your biblical obligation to bring your family to church on a regular basis. That is the man's role. Now, let me tell you, when you do not do that, and the mom brings the kids to church, that's still okay. But studies show that if the mom only brings the kids to church, the likelihood of the kids falling in the faith is very low. But if the dad brings the kids to church, the likelihood is extremely high. I'm sure a lot of you were raised in families where the mom was very religious and the dad was meh. Who here can resonate with that? Raise your hand. A lot of hands go up. Men, don't create that family for yourself. I know that, you want to sleep in or, you want to watch a football game. Get your act together, bring your wife, bring your kids, and bring them to church. That sets an example for your kids that you value God over comfort.
I'm wondering what your best advice is for young couples with small children on how to prioritize and nurture their marriage amidst the busy day-to-day life of kids.
That's a very good question because your marriage came first. And your husband is very important because your kids, you're raising them to fly. You're raising them to leave the nest. They'll always come back. And once they do, I think that's why people get empty nest syndrome, because they look at their husband in an empty living room and they're like, who are you? I have to relearn you. You want to grow with your husband. That is going to be very acrobatic at times, even if that means locking yourself in a closet with your husband for just an hour to say, can I breathe with you? Can I just 5 minutes? Can I just have a second to look at you? Something that Charlie does that's really sweet that I love is that sometimes, especially when he's traveling, we figure out the dynamic of at least having a date night at least once a month, at least. But there'll be moments where he's literally about to rush out the door and I won't see him for several days. Kids are wreaking havoc in the kitchen, pulling things out all over, and he just grabs me and he's like, 1 minute. And we just literally stare at each other for a minute and say, like, I love you, whatever you need to say, but we have that 1 minute together to reset our hearts. And honestly, that is something that helps recharge the bucket until you get that date night. So just being really intentional about little moments that will build into a greater good for the relationship. But I know
I agree with all that. Just prioritize, obviously, your marriage actually comes before your kids. I know that's a provocative thing to say, but it's true. Your relationship with your kids is important.
Yes.
But it's not covenantal.
Right.
Your marriage is a covenant. Your relationship with your kids is an outgrowth of a covenant. They're under your stewardship, but covenantal relationships are ones that we saw with Abraham and David and Israel and, of course, Jesus. That idea of marriage being a covenant is a big, big deal. In fact, only marriage in the Bible is compared to Christ's relationship with the church. Mm-hmm. So always prioritize your marriage.
My parents got divorced when I was a toddler. I have no memory of them together. I'm 21 years old right now, and I got married this past April.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's phenomenal. That's thrilling.
So I've never had a good role model in terms of, marriage with my parents. So I was wondering, what would your best advice be for having a long, happy marriage?
But look, I mean, it's not about you. That's the most important thing that you'll learn really quick. It's about service. It's about, commitment to the other. And this is the thing I always laugh about, when people say men and women are the same. When you're married for like an afternoon, you realize men and women are very much not the same, right? And so, I mean, a great example is, when a man comes home from work, there could have been a nuclear explosion at work. How was work? It was fine. It was good. Where the wife just will talk about every single detail. That it's just the nature, right? It's completely different. And then, Dennis Prager has a really great speech on this that drives the left crazy, which is that men's nature is towards variety, okay? And I think it's very important for wives to just say to their husbands, thank you for being loyal to me. It's a very important thing. A lot of men don't hear that enough, and it drives some women like, I don't want to have to say that. It's like, well, just study a little bit about men's nature and understand how men are kind of programmed towards variety. It's a very important thing. The final thing is just carve time for one another. And so I turn my phone off every Friday night, turn it back on Sunday morning. I'm unreachable by the world, and you just have to focus on another person. The last thing I'll say is this, is social media and phones will do everything it possibly can to get in the way of your marriage. So do what you can to put those aside, silence them, and I wish you a very, very long and happy marriage, and hopefully children sometime soon. And I fully support young people getting married early. I think that's a very important thing. Now, the reason, and people say, well, it's a risk. Why can't I wait till I'm 28 or 30? Because what if it's not the right? Everything in life is a risk. Okay, everything has a risk. But there's also another risk that you have to acknowledge, which is the risk of our thousands of listeners that email me, and they say, I'm 35 and I haven't found anybody, and it's too late. That's a risk too. And I can tell you right now, the risk of having despondency or having just kind of regret, that's the better word, that's a risk that some people need to know just as much as the risk of you might not be able to go to Paris every summer.
I had a question. My girlfriend and I have differing political beliefs. We voted differently. We're both Christians. We have a lot of the same beliefs about how humans should be treated, abortion, that type of thing. But identity politics a little bit, not liking candidates based on their personality versus their policy kind of divided us. Also prioritization of policies, so she's a little more foreign helping, and I think we should be more focused domestically right now with the damage we've taken on the last 4 years. So how should we handle our relationship when we have a lot of the same values but differing political beliefs?
Do you want the truth?
Yeah.
Do not marry this girl.
Okay.
Do not marry someone that you cannot talk about the daily news with. You guys can laugh at it. Do not build a life with somebody where you cannot agree on what daily news channel to watch. I'm going to be honest. As someone who is married, when you have to instill values in a child, you cannot have the first elemental issue at 7 a.m. when you turn on the radio or a podcast to be disagreement. You got enough of that already in a home.
Yeah.
You need to have harmony. Build a life with someone where you have agreement on the macro issues. You can have disagreement on the micro issues. You need to agree on religion. You need to agree on eternity. You need to agree on political matters. You could disagree on what type of food you like. That's micro. Yeah. You could disagree on bedtime, right? You could disagree on the type of cars or where you vacation. That is micro. Macro, you must be in alignment. And understand, let's just take, for example, you're raising a child. And she's like, hey, you take the son in the morning and then he'll be with the mom. Is that kid going to hear two different things?
A big piece of her political beliefs, I hear her, she has an open mind to what I say, and she starts to agree with things. I think a lot of her life has been influenced by having two liberal parents, and then now she's in school.
Do not marry this girl. Like, you do not want liberal in-laws. Like, you do not want this. I'm telling you, run away, find somebody else. In-laws are very important. I'm telling you right now, as someone who's married with 2 kids, in-laws become embedded. You almost inherit them as pseudo-parents. And like, if all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, here's Thanksgiving, here's Christmas, you should be excited about Thanksgiving. You should be excited about it, not like begrudging against it. Political agreement is a necessary foundational element when you want to try to build a family.
I'm lucky to have found the love of my life. We've been together
Praise
for
the
about
Lord.
a year and a half, and I want to marry her one day after we both graduate college. However, she's not where I am in my journey with Christ, and I want to have a marriage centered around Christ, and I want to know what are some of the best ways I can help guide her towards our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, so that we can share a happy future together.
It's a phenomenal question. Here's my first immediate. Do not get married till that gets sorted out. Do not get married with the intent to convert your spouse. And if it does not get sorted out, then I would caution for you to enter into marriage. You enter into marriage as a covenant. Now, what is a contract? Is a thing between two people. I want to buy something from you, or I want to lease something. A covenant is something between three people: man, woman, God. A covenant has no expiration date. A covenant is built on love and trust and mutual shared values. A contract is not. So my advice for all of you is enter into marriage covenantally, not contractually. Get married in a church. Do premarital counseling. Make sure your spouse shares your values about religion. If they don't, try to figure it out, and it might not be the right choice for you, because here's what I'll tell you. Marriage will get hard. And when marriage gets hard and you're going to church to sort out your problems and she's not, that's a no-brainer. Number one, you asked a specific question, though. Pray for your future spouse. Pray for her. Bring her to church. Ask her the tough questions. There are probably, can I ask you, what is her objection as to why she will not follow Jesus? Is it technical, that she doesn't think there's enough evidence? Is it that she was wronged by religion growing up? Is it she thinks it's hypocritical? I know all the objections, so which one would it be?
She doesn't really know how there can be a higher power when there's so much evil in the world.
Yeah, okay, got it. So, she strikes me somewhat smart, right?
Very.
Yeah. So here's what you should say. Their evil cannot exist if there is no standard of good. So let me ask you, very simple. You can do a thought exercise. Just draw a crooked line for her and say, honey, is this a crooked line? Yes. How do you know that? Well, she'll say, because I know what a straight line looks like. Wait a second. So how do you know what is evil? Because you have a straight good to compare it to. She only knows something is evil because she believes there's a transcendent good. Evil does not exist. Evil is just an opinion if there is no God. Murder is not wrong if there is no God. Stealing is not wrong if there is no God. So the way to convince her of that is that you're not the first person to wrestle with the question of evil. The more important question is it actually evil? Or is it just an opinion? And we know as believers that there's an absolute standard above us that we appeal to. And finally, I think you should say the question. The Bible tells us two things. God will use all things for good for those who love him, Romans 12:2. But that might not satisfy her. Instead, the question of evil should be, we as Christians, we have to explain a couple things. We have to explain, like, child suffering. Like, I'll be honest, it's really tough for us to wrestle with the fact that these girls are at Christian summer camp and they get washed away in a flood. It's tough, right? We have to explain child cancer and flooding and earthquakes. But the atheist, they have to explain everything else. They have to explain why we exist. What is love? What is mercy? Why is it that our universe came to being? Is there a standard of good? Is there a standard of evil? They have to explain everything else. So I don't know if most women are led to the gospel through more, let's say, emotional feeling type. She might sound very analytical, and that's fine. But I would encourage her and say, just because there is evil does not mean there is no God. In fact, it means the only reason you know it's evil is because there's a transcendent, perfect standard of good, and that is God himself.
What is your advice to young adults who are in relationships with a significant other who has opposing political views?
Yeah, great question. So obviously everyone is free to make their own choices. I think that is a recipe for disaster. I do. And I'm not saying break up with that person. I'm not saying you can't have a nice time. But here's a good question. Eventually, you might have children. Let's pretend you have children with that person, okay? Whose values are you going to teach the kid? What kind of school do you send the kid? And who decides then? And then over a period of time, when you start living for a year or 2 or 3 years together, and all of a sudden the news comes on and tension's already high in the house, are you going to be able to discuss the nightly news politely and wonderful together? Are you going to see it all in the same way? What about charitable giving? Are you going to want to give to the same charities? I could go on and on and on and on. And I've seen it work every once in a while. I've seen people with opposing views build really beautiful lives and do great things. But I've seen it be a disaster more times than not. That doesn't mean, by the way, if you find someone that shares your views, that it's going to be the most wonderful thing ever. But if you want to have children, then I believe firmly you have to marry somebody or be with someone that sees the world the same way you do. Or else it's not fair to the child. Or else they're going to be having competing and confusing narratives and dialogues passed down to them at all times. And so do what you will with that, but I also have seen a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm going to change them." That's not a good idea. That usually doesn't work. And by the way, if you are in a relationship to change somebody, that's really not what a relationship is, right? Typically, people that go into a relationship with the intent of transforming the other, that ends like the Hindenburg.